Doctor, would I be accused of exaggerating if I described what's happening in Congress the past few days as pandemonium?
Well, I think that'd probably be appropriate, Jason. I mean, first of all, what Adam Schiff is doing right now is completely, I think, insane.
Yeah.
Even if they're trying to justify it, is that they want to.
You all right, Doctor?
Here we go. Are you there, Jason?
I'm here. Have you got me
think
still?
I had some. That's the problem. I just had to turn off that volume on the. It's a playback, but I've got it solved.
No problem. No problem. Adam Schiff is a disgrace. What he's doing, I think, is highly destructive, not only to the presidency, the country, but to the notion of democracy itself.
Well, the problem is, first of all, the Democrats here are so politically motivated, and they're motivated by an intense hatred of Donald Trump. I mean, the two sides have gotten to the point where we're dealing with a cultural civil war. And I think it's gotten to the point where the totalitarianism on the left, the intolerance, the hatred of Donald Trump, this is a redo of the Russiagate. Now, Russiagate took 3 years. This is going to take, I think, less than already 3 weeks. I think the Ukraine gate is unraveling. Yeah. And it's very much similar in structure. You know, you've got at the heart of Russiagate, you had the Steele dossier, which was lying. And here you've got the whistleblower complaint. Yeah. And the whistleblower did not hear the call. So it's all hearsay.
Yeah.
And if the rules had not just been changed to allow this all recently, I think intentionally, by the Inspector General, Atkinson, who seems to be very much of a Democratic-oriented political player in the deep state, this whole thing would not have happened. So you've got, again, the idea that Trump was putting pressure for a quid pro quo on Zelensky, the current president of the Ukraine, to demand that he investigate Biden in order to receive aid. That's just not borne out by the transcript that was released of the actual July 25th call. I read it as a very reasonable determination by Donald Trump with a new president. Zelensky just had come in May 2019. And he's basically saying, am I going to throw more? He doesn't even raise the issue of aid, but he's thinking about, is Zelensky really going to solve the corruption in Ukraine, or is he just another corrupt politician who's going to engage in the same kind of corruption that's been going on for a long time in Ukraine? It's one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a legitimate question that Donald Trump is asking. I mean, I can pull the transcript here. We'll probably get into it in the full broadcast. But Zelensky says to Donald Trump on that phone call, I'm trying to clean the swamp in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And Trump basically says, I can help you. We want to do that too. And the Biden discussion does not come up in the context of the favor. That's with regards to Donald Trump says, you can do me a favor. You could look at CrowdStrike, the servers in Ukraine. Donald Trump is referring to this Democratic firm, CrowdStrike, started by a Ukrainian in the United States who was very democratically oriented, who said that in Ukraine, Russia had hacked Ukrainian artillery with GPS data so the Russian guns could take out the Ukrainian artillery. It never happened. And Trump is saying they were just as dishonest, CrowdStrike, in Ukraine as they were saying Russia hacked the DNC emails. We can't get to the DNC server because the Democratic National Committee has kept it in their headquarters. They wouldn't even let the Mueller FBI investigate that server. And Donald Trump is basically saying you can help us get to the bottom of CrowdStrike. When Biden comes up, I mean, Donald Trump did not need Ukraine to do research on Biden. I could have given him all the information he wanted. I was preparing to write a book if Biden were the candidate. I don't think he would be. I was going to write a book explaining all this corruption, and it was well known. It was easily researched. Spend 20 minutes on a search engine, and you'll see how much material going back to 2014, 2015, earlier, is out. The Biden family corruption goes back to 1972 when Biden was getting bank deals for his brother James. He had repeated deals for James. There have been favors. He got Biden on when Hunter Biden was a young man, he got him on the Amtrak board because Joe Biden was taking the Amtrak, I think, 8,000 times between Delaware and Washington.
Whoa.
He was called Amtrak Joe. And so his son's on the board, making
You eat a lot of hot
$100,000 a year.
dogs on the train, Dr. Corsi.
Well, he wanted to present himself as, just one of the guys, just a working man.
Right.
And then when Biden got involved a little bit later in his Senate career with this MNBA, which was one of the big credit card companies. They were issuing affinity cards. If you like a football team, you can get the card with your football team on it. And Hunter Biden gets on the board again. And Joe Biden passes legislation that makes it more difficult for consumers to go in and plead bankruptcy and to be able to have their debts forgiven. That's in favor. He did that for the MNBA credit card company. It was one of his biggest donors, also domiciled in Delaware. So this goes way back. I mean, I've got a box of files here on Biden corruption, and it would have been my next book. But that's okay. If Hillary runs, I'll just write another book on Hillary. I mean, come on, Hillary. Come on, let's run. I got lots of stuff here. Come on, Hillary.
She can barely walk, Dr. Corsi. I'll be interested to see her.
Come on, Hillary.
Quick question, Doctor.
Third time's a charm. Come on, Hillary. I dare you.
It would be interesting. I've got a quick question, Dr. Corsi. It seemed to me, and you did a great job of taking us through that Zelensky-Trump phone call, but it seemed that even the choice of the words drain the swamp. And it's interesting to note that Zelensky was speaking to President Trump in English, something I think very important about his demeanor as a foreign president.
Probably some of the time. I'm sure there were also translators, but I mean, Zelensky does speak English. I mean, He is a comic.
Right.
He's not a professional politician. He's a comic.
And I found it interesting that he chose the phrase, "we want to drain the swamp here too," because just in that one sentence, he's paying respect to Donald Trump and showing that he's on board with the same agenda. I thought that was a very important phone call. And the other tactic that the Democrats and Adam Schiff and the social engineers in the news and Congress are trying to use is that they're not focusing on the content of the phone call. They've already arrived at the conclusion that it's impeachable. They don't want to look at the evidence. They don't want to look at the offense. They just want to get right to the impeachment.
Well, and that's right. I mean, they want to take a vote and just impeach him, then send it to the Senate. But, that's Nancy Pelosi could do that. She could try to take a party line vote on articles of impeachment, but it won't go anywhere. Impeachment is a political process. And if you don't, I lived through the 1972 Watergate break-in and the 74 hearings, and then finally Richard Nixon resigning in August 74.
Right.
At both sides saw and voted on, and it was a House resolution that was bipartisan. The committee that was run by Sam Irwin, who was a attorney from North Carolina, kind of a good old boy attorney, had equal representation from the Republicans. It was a fair process, and the American people saw not only the break-in, but Richard Nixon's paranoia and these bags of cash that were going around with the Republican National Committee, the committee to reelect the president. I mean, it was scandalous, and enough was laid out in front of the American people that the average person could say this is wrong. That's not happening here. I mean, again, I worked my way through college in public relations. I was trained by Edward Bernays, who was the father of public relations, a brilliant guy, and who wrote the books in the 30s that, really were the foundation, propaganda. He was a Jew from Austria, and Hitler wanted him to come back and help him with, Goebbels. Well, he clearly refused. But the whole idea of that's Bernays right there.
Similar
the whole
taste
idea
in
of
mustaches.
Well, I mean, he was kind of in his younger days, he was kind of a distinctive man. I knew him, of course, when he was much older. He still was a very distinctive looking guy. He had a big house in Cambridge, Massachusetts that was filled with books. At any rate, the point is, if you look at this from 35,000 feet and, the kind of theatrics of this, you've got Adam Schiff, who is kind of a shaky character. I mean, even the way he looks is bug-eyed and
Yeah.
nervous look, and he's got this reputation with Ed Buck out
Right.
in his district in California, who turns out to be a big Democratic fundraiser, donor. But Ed Buck is now arrested and wouldn't be released, on his recognizance because he had sex and meth parties with young black males who end up dead or dying or overdosed. And Schiff is at Ed Buck's place some 16 times and is under investigation by the bar, according to sources I've had. Mm-hmm. And so that, this background is very shaky to begin with for Schiff. And then Schiff has lied for 3 years about, I've got proof of collusion with Russia and it's going to come out in the Mueller report. Well, that was all nonsense. And now he's holding closed-door hearings. Well, it's a star chamber. You're not going to win the public by having a hearing closed, shutting out only Democrats, allowed in except for the committee, limiting, no cross-examination by any Trump attorney, and then leaks coming out every day of what these witnesses are saying. And as we analyze, which we will do in the full broadcast, I don't think that these witnesses are holding up even with the leaks. But the theatrics of this look like a kangaroo court. And that's not going to play with the American people who are viewing impeachment as a political process. I think the Democrats are committing political hara-kiri, suicide here, by conducting these hearings the way they're doing it.
Well, I agree with you, Doctor. I mean, it's to say that it has the appearance of a star chamber. I mean, it absolutely is. The thing that people, even if they hate Donald Trump, the thing they need to keep in mind is that if Adam Schiff or anyone in Congress can just decide to hold any kind of legal or criminal type hearing without due process, that is so far from what this country is supposed to be about. We should all be very fearful of that. It's reminiscent of what happened to you, Doctor, where they just decide you're guilty of something and start prosecuting you with no regard to the Constitution or your rights or anything.
Well, when Mueller decided after 40 hours, I did not know Julian Assange, and I pretty much blew his case apart, Mueller's case, because I couldn't connect Trump or Roger Stone or anyone else to Assange. I didn't. And I refused to take the plea deal, and they did not indict me. But the point is that here you've got a replication of the Russiagate. It's the same thing all over again. Donald Trump is being accused of collusion with a foreign country for political gain, to beat Hillary or to beat Biden. It's a repeat. It's a do-over. But the problem is it's going to fail again because, once again, it's not predicated on the truth. Yeah. And the transcript, we got all these people with hearsay about, I heard from this guy, who heard from that guy, who heard from this guy, that there was really quid pro quo. Well, the record doesn't bear it out. And that's where the case falls apart. I think Donald Trump has a case. I encouraged him through tweets and the like to go to federal district court in D.C. and file a criminal motion against the House of Representatives, Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi, for the denial of his 14th Amendment due process rights. Right. Donald Trump still has due process rights. And we heard today with Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham, coming out and saying he's going to introduce a resolution to condemn the way the Democrats are conducting this impeachment, whatever it is, inquiry. It's certainly unique. If they want to interview witnesses before they bring them to a due process hearing that's called by a vote on the floor, fine. But there's been no vote on the floor of the House to justify any kind of impeachment proceedings at all.
Yeah,
they're just going ahead investigating and questioning potential witnesses before they have a motion to actually have an impeachment inquiry, which they're going to need, I think, unless they just want to go to articles of impeachment. But the point is that this process, which is, Lindsey Graham, I think, is right in having a condemnation of it. I'd like to see Lindsey Graham be more active. I'd like to see him take the Senate Judiciary Committee and start calling witnesses, both on Russiagate and on Ukrainegate. Let's get, Brennan and these other guys in front of Lindsey Graham, this William Taylor who testified closed-door session this week before Schiff. Let's bring him into the Senate Judiciary Committee in front of the full committee. I think Lindsey Graham is doing theatrics right now. He's making it look like he's concerned and taking an active role, but yet I think he's afraid to have hearings because he'll expose his own corruption and John McCain's corruption in Ukraine and Syria, which I still believe goes back to working with Hillary and essentially taking the steps in the Arab Spring that ultimately did lead to the creation of ISIS. Yeah. And I attributed that to John McCain at the time it was going on. And McCain plays a role in both Russiagate with his assistant named Kramer, and also in Ukrainegate surfaces again. And I think the whole thing, Lindsey Graham is just afraid of his shadow at this point. And if he doesn't want to hold hearings, if he's not going to take and use the Senate Judiciary Committee to defend President Trump, I wish Lindsey Graham would give the chairmanship of the Senate Judiciary Committee to someone who will do something with it. I mean, Grassley was very effective when Grassley was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's just stepped down largely, I think, because of age, but I still think Grassley would be doing a more effective job in that position defending President Trump.
Yeah. Well, Doctor, we're going to be beginning our primary broadcast in just a few minutes. People know by now, I believe, that you and I are doing a weekly show called Dr. Corsi's Prescription for America. People can see that by joining us on patreon.com/Jerome Corsi, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. It's a great way for people to financially support your efforts, Doctor, and also to keep the type of independent journalism that you and I are interested in and pursuing independent, rather than being sponsored by big moneyed interests who tend to have an influence over the editorial content. We're relying on individual micro sponsors or the actual viewers of the show. People can also follow Dr. Corsi daily on CorsiNation.com. You can support his legal efforts there. He's got several links down the page on the left. You can also buy his books and follow the articles and the news decodes that he's doing daily. Doctor, we'll be getting into some of the details of all the things you've raised here, including Lindsey Graham's press conference that he just had, this testimony from Bill Taylor. You know, Doctor, real quickly before we wrap up, I just wanted to mention a lot of people have been asking me, based on a statement made the other day, if this individual, Bill Taylor, is the individual that met with myself and George Webb and gave us a BlackBerry. Ironically, Dr. Corsi, that meeting took place on the very first day that I met you. I was going to a screening of Get Me Roger Stone that Jack Posobiec was hosting at some screening room there near the facility where Guccifer 1 was being incarcerated. And on the drive to that screening, George received a phone call from an individual who met us at a restaurant and proceeded to have a few drinks with George, but he looked nothing like this guy. We met him the next day at a taco restaurant to return the BlackBerry. I didn't drink anything either night, and I remember him very clearly. This is not him. So just wanted to clear up any confusion that might exist about Bill Taylor. And Dr. Corsi, I'll see you in just 10 minutes.
1 second,
yes.
If I could just 1 second. What we've done on what was the Legal Defense Fund.
Oh, yes.
Is I'm now not under any threat of indictment. The Mueller investigation is finished. We've changed it into a fight back. I mean, it's now designed to support the efforts of CorsiNation.com. We are doing daily decodes, which are podcasts. Mm-hmm. If you look on the left side, you can see we're not only posting them on Corsi Nation. There's one from the most current, but we're Spotify. Also posting them on. We've got it as audio podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio. There's a whole list of them there.
Well done,
and if you go down, and they're daily. We're doing those every day, mm-hmm. and they're free. Those are where you can contribute to the Fight Back Fund. And if you what we're basically trying to do in the decodes, which is to decode what's going on almost daily in all this Ukraine gate and the impeachment. And we're posting today's up on YouTube. Today's decode actually ran about an hour and a half, so it's getting posted a little bit late. Patreon is where they're all going to be. All my decodes are going to be archived there. Plus, your interviews with me will be on patreon.com.
Great.
And you can get to that, I think, for $1 a week or whatever you can. I mean, it's not horribly expensive. $1 a month, I mean.
Yep.
And finally, with the list here of SoundCloud and the others, the video decodes that we're posting on Corsi Nation and on YouTube, my Jerome Corsi channel, are as audio podcasts on all these other channels, SoundCloud, iTunes, etc. And you can download them and listen to them as regular iPod podcasts.
Yeah, great. I think a lot of people
there's a lot
like
of different formats.
Yeah,
a lot of different formats
and stuff.
Sure. I mean, there are a lot of different ways you can listen to the daily decodes, and I'm going to be doing more with ebooks. I'm really liking the idea of more of the audio and, the current being ability to talk about the politics with podcasts, ebooks, etc. Although my next hardcover book will be this coup d'etat, which is now written, and it will be out in January and February, really showing how this it is continuing to be a treasonous coup d'etat to remove Donald Trump from office, denying him the rights of a legitimate victory in a duly held election. And I think the Constitution is at stake. That will be my next hardcover book coming out in January or February next year, right around the corner.
The one last thing I'd like to say, Doctor, before we switch over, people who are watching us right now in this preview on YouTube can also tune in to the simulcast. My internet connection is getting a little bit taxed by all the things I'm doing, but they can tune in to the simulcast on the Jerome Corsi YouTube channel, where they can also access Dr. Corsi's super chat and send him, I don't know why it disappeared. There we go. But you can send Dr. Corsi money through Super Chat, and there's a lot of different ways to support the doctor and his ongoing efforts. So Dr. Corsi, I'll see you in just a few minutes on patreon.com/Jerome Corsi and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you there.
Thanks, Jason.